I'm against these amendments, and I consider them to be quite serious in terms of the substance of what they're doing, which is, in the event of Brexit taking place, the effect would be to remove the right of UK citizens to vote in European Parliament elections in this country and to stand for European Parliament elections in this country. I think it would be the first time in the history of the state that the franchise is restricted as opposed to extended. Generally, the history has been under pressure of struggle from below that the franchise has been successively extended. We hope that that continues to be the case, for example, with 16-year-olds being given the right to vote. But here you have quite a dangerous precedent being set of a restriction of the franchise, in particular for UK citizens being carved out of the right to vote in European elections post-Brexit. And I mean, our starting point is the position that everybody who lives here and who is affected by the decisions that are made here should have the right to vote in all of the elections that elect those who make those decisions that affect people's lives. That's our starting point. That obviously isn't on the table here. But from that point of view, then, the idea of removing the right to vote in European Parliament elections from British citizens represents a further step away from the position that we should be in, and is an undemocratic, anti-democratic move, in my opinion. I think also it's the case that kind of politically, in terms of how this plays out post-Brexit, it should be the approach of the Irish government, and we would argue it should be the approach, for example, of a Corbyn government in future in Britain, to unilaterally grant rights. A Corbyn government in Britain should unilaterally grant rights to EU citizens in Britain, but similarly the Irish government should unilaterally grant rights to British citizens here, because otherwise what this has the potential to do is to start a tit-for-tat in terms of restriction of rights of British citizens in Ireland in this case, but also in the case of European citizens in Britain post-Brexit, which would be, again, a very dangerous situation to get into. And so we think we should be democratic and continue with a situation where British citizens who live here continue to have the right to vote in European Parliament elections post-Brexit. The 2016 census shows that UK citizens are the second biggest non-Irish national group within Ireland, with the Polish community being the largest. And they would easily be the biggest minority group when you include those who may also hold Irish citizenship. Just to deal finally with the kind of justification that the government gives for its position is that legally they can't continue, British citizens can't continue to have the right to vote in European Parliament elections here. I just don't think that's the case. I mean, the European Court of Justice has dealt with this issue before in case C-14504, which was Spain v the UK, which related to the right to vote for it was whether the UK was entitled to extend the right to vote in elections to the European Parliament to nationals of non-member countries resident in part of its European territory, which was Gibraltar. And to read just the summary of the case from the ECJ, in the current state of community law, the definition of persons entitled to vote and to stand as candidate in elections to the European Parliament falls within the competence of each member state in compliance with community law. Articles 189 of the EC, 190 EC, 117 EC and 19 EC do not preclude the member states from granting that right to vote and to stand as a candidate to certain persons who have close links to them other than their own nationals or citizens of the unions resident in their territory. Later on, it does not follow that a member state is prevented from granting the right to vote and to stand for election to certain persons who have a close link with it without, however, being nationals of that state or another member state. And that's precisely the situation that we're dealing with here. Clearly, UK citizens who live in Ireland have a close link with Ireland. And the ECJ has already ruled clearly that we are not prevented from allowing them to continue to vote in European elections post-Brexit, despite not being a national of a member state. So I don't believe the legal justification of the government is well grounded. I think that the ECJ has clearly ruled on this issue already, and therefore in that context this is a political decision and we should make the political decision to continue to allow British citizens to vote here, as opposed to moving to restrict the franchise in this way. Thanks.